don't review myself objectively.
Although you are recording me after very little sleep, so Josh had rowing, so we had to go at 5, getting me at 5:30.
Oh, was
We got
it
to bed late because
a
we were
rowing
just-
trip? Oh no.
No, they do morning rowing now.
Right.
Anyhow.
Are you doing okay? Yeah, like, you're okay to go ahead?
No, it's fine.
Okay, all right. So, it's a bit of a while since we
Yes.
since we did the lesson, which is not ideal. I must remember next time to sort that better.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any particular memories of it at this point?
Yeah, well, no, I can't remember which bit of the lesson we came into.
So, I
Were
think
we discussing, oh yes,
what your ideas of feminism were.
yeah, and I was using Google Classroom questions because I wanted to hear from everyone. It's a sort of ratio thing to use Google Classroom questions. Still not sure about it. And also, I recognised last year that question worked. This year it didn't. The second one, I need to rephrase it. So, saying what does feminism mean to you is the same as what is feminism. Whereas last year they understood, but this year I think the question should have been, the wording should have been something like, how has feminism affected your life? Might have been better. Because, and you can tell from the question answers that they still thought it was about feminism as well.
But you had planned that question carefully. I think it's interesting because I do think that from one year to another, one can have very different groups of students. So it's worth thinking about how one phrases a question.
But when I thought, so I think the use of Google Classroom questions is another ratio thing where I know they're having to think about what they want to think about. I just happen to have explained it badly, so they were thinking about the wrong things.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Because this half term has been very ratio focused in everything I've done in all the different classes. So global politics, which you haven't seen yet, I'm teaching completely differently. I used to have slides, and we used to have lots of discussion, debate, but actually you could switch off in that class, whereas now they're always doing stuff.
Oh, that's great.
We've changed the flipped classroom resources. Instead of, they're not just taking notes, they've got different tasks that prepare them properly for the way in which they are A, going to be assessed, but B, how they have to think about it, which then enables us to do different things in class as well.
So they're sort of more structured in many ways.
These desks are great. It's just in P35 they haven't got them.
Right.
We can't yet get hold of them. We've asked, but they're expensive. So as soon as someone wants to get rid of them, we want to put it in P35.
You can try A3 whiteboards. We've got a set of A3 whiteboards.
Okay. Yeah, we've got A4 whiteboards. They're just not big enough.
I think when you're doing a lot of writing, because I think your kids tend to sort of do quite a lot.
Yeah. I don't like them typing on a computer. I
No.
don't know what they're doing.
Yeah, well, that's really
And so
good
here's a
observation.
great example. With 13C economics, I had done, normally I get them to do stuff on the tables. I can then walk around and see and engage them and talk to them. There was one task I was explaining terms of trade, which is a thing, and I explained how to do it, and then there were some numbers there, and then I did cold calling with some kids. So it's on their computer and on the board, but we did some cold calling with some kids, and because I'd had them looking at a screen, because I wanted them to read the definition and then start doing it, about 5 of them just hadn't listened.
Yeah.
So I went, right, how do I do this one? And they just went, I don't know. It's year 13s. I don't know. And I got a bit frustrated, obviously, but then also, because I have what I call the Tiger Woods view of teaching, which, can I just explain the Tiger Woods view of teaching? So, in 2000 at Pebble Beach in California, Tiger Woods won the US Open by 15 shots. And he just had this sort of, I think it's preternatural calm about him, as he did it. And he was asked why he was so calm while everyone else was collapsing around him. And he said, I've been working on something with my psychologist. So this was at his pomp. If I hit a putt and it hits a spike mark left by someone else and misses the hole, instead of damning the spike mark, I go, right, I have to practice 6-foot putts. I go and practice 6-foot putts, and hey presto, I get better. If I hit a 6-iron in the wind, and the wind, a sudden wind takes it, instead of shouting about the wind, I say, right, I have to practice 6-irons.
Right.
So I do. And because of that, I feel everything's under control. I'm calm about it. The way I translate that to teaching is if you blame the kids
I love that.
for stuff, then nothing's under your control. And I have colleagues in my department who are constantly blaming kids. It's not kids, because you just have to think how you do it better. So when I had that situation with that class where 5 of them just basically hadn't concentrated on what I said because I'd happened to have had it, I'd wanted them to read the definition on screen and then attempt something, and because of that they were doing something else. I have to take responsibility for that.
That's such a fantastic attitude, I have to say.
Mm.
And it's not 100% common.
Some argue that it puts too much pressure on myself, and they'll disagree with it, or you're just blaming themselves. So I'm not. I'm just saying I'm the adult, and I've got the ability to change that, and I have to think about what caused that.
Also, you're the teacher, and I always think the same in adult education. Even if I was teaching adults, I know, because we're all naturally distracted by things. I mean, it's natural, and and we get distracted by screens. Exactly the same would happen if you were in front of adults.
Yeah. And so looking at it, and so because they're now doing lots on here. The one thing I've had to do, I'm sorry if you're the senior manager and you're watching this, is that when they draw on there, I have to let them take a picture of their phones. I have to let them get out their phones and take a picture. And the worst thing was that when the rule came in and they didn't do that, they then lost what they'd done. That then affected them in a later assessment, because I said to them, just recently had an assessment, I said, we did it on the thing, you had this exact question, you planned it, and they said, yeah, but we did it on the desk and not that photograph anymore. I thought, shit, that's silly. So another question which I have there is, I was teaching quite a complex concept called comparative advantage, and some kids got it early, and they finished early, and I was engaging other people, and I just hadn't anticipated some would be able to do it so fast. I know the answer is that you've got to, because I put the exercise on the board, I didn't have a list of extension questions. So I think that was also, it's not really a question, it's more observation from this week. And what happened was actually with that lesson is that I felt it was the first time I taught it, and I was uncomfortable with the, how I was going to teach it. I didn't think I had it right. Syra came in, break and said, can I watch this next lesson? My first reaction was no, it's going to be a shambles. And then, thought about it, I went, because it's going to be a shambles, she should come and watch it. So I went and got her. And thank God, because she watched it. I'm teaching a mathematical concept I'm not great at. I know they haven't got it because of ratio, because I'm getting them to do stuff there, which is great, because I can see how many people haven't got it. And she was able to give me not just feedback, but also suggestions for how to do it better. And it's a sign of how I've always been okay with observations and wanting to be observed doing something difficult. What's the point of being observed doing something I'm good at? It's a sign really that, of how observations have been not demystified, I can't remember the word, depressurized.
Destigmatized as well.
But I wanted her to see me do something that I thought might go badly. Did.
It's also great for her as a junior teacher to see you still, open to that learning. And
so then she taught me how she does it, and then I retaught it the next day. Went back to this year 13 class. I know I taught yesterday badly. Miss Suchak I said I got Miss Suchak because I thought I wasn't sure about how I was doing it, so I'm going to reteach it, and that worked a lot better. I then did the same thing to my other economics class. So that's good. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But I remember 10 years ago I was trying to teach that using PowerPoints, and then for homework they do questions. The problem with that is that I'm not there. They can copy each other's homework. I don't know whether it's their work. Whereas if you teach, if they're doing it on the desk in front of you, you can see. Nathan, one of the boys in my class, 8 out of 8 with multiple choice on the flipped classroom homework, but clearly had guessed.
Right.
And I know that because he got 8 out of 8, he couldn't do even the simplest thing. I think he just got lucky, but that's why it's so important to not just do, because some people have got 2 or 3 out of 8, which is why I focused on the stuff that everyone had got wrong. then it turned out he understood it better than anyone else, which is why the multiple choice that I do is never the be all and end all, unless everyone's got 8 out of 8.
Yes, well that's where is where do we, yeah.
So just as a review of the term, I haven't yet got cold calling right. I'm doing more I try to do more stepping back, but
I mean, my observation, so I noticed, so a couple of things I saw. I noticed you gave clear instructions to the students to close their laptops before you started discussion. So I think that's really, you know, I see a lot of that not around the school. I see a lot of sort of just, you know, people starting to talk and, you know, laptops up and then the hands creep on and the eyes go down. So I think that's really, I think you have a good mental model of what attention looks like and how to achieve it, which is great, particularly because you do use laptops in your lesson, and because that happens, it's really important to have that routine in there. And I also noticed you gave thinking time before writing, before you had the written answer to the question.
Enough then? I really
I mean,
struggle
I
with
think-
the sciences.
so
The
on-
silences I really struggle with.
So I think there's a couple of things. So you use some different kinds of questioning. So you use written answers to questions and you use verbal answers to questions. So I think it's, I mean, I actually don't always give thinking time before written answers, but your lesson made me think, actually, that's really lovely. I think it's nice to stop and pause and have the time to gather thoughts before you commit to writing. So I thought I might steal that and build that in. Often when I give a writing one, I just like, that's their sort of, their thinking time is their writing as well. On the other hand, I did notice that when you're asking verbal questions, you're still not leaving a pause between the end of your question and the name, which I know is really tricky.
No, but I need to. I was demonstrating it to my family at home because Emily wanted to know what cold calling actually meant.
Yeah.
So Ellie hates it.
Yes.
So, like Emily said, is it where you do a name and then ask a question? And I was explaining to her why that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And she was asking the kids, what do you think of it? And Josh was like, well, they all do it, so I know it's going to happen.
Great.
He's fine.
Daddy says that.
But Ellie had on her the IEP, don't do cold calling, but I don't encourage that. I don't encourage a kid not to be cold called because then she'll zone out.
I have one of my year 11s who has that, but I have started and she seems okay with it. Like I've had her for a year, and then this year I've started, particularly on low stakes questions where I know she's got the answer.
Well,
I've
if
started
I've got a
asking
kid,
her.
I have a kid in year 13 with major anxiety issues, and she's not doing much homework because of it, and she's not sleeping much, and so I don't call her unless she puts her hand up. But that's because I know that she'll start not coming to lessons for the day, and that's fine. I just think it's for most kids, I think it's very important.
So what do you think is it that's getting between you and the pause after the question?
Forgetting, discomfort with silence. I've always been majorly discomforted with silence anywhere. Like, if I'm sitting with someone and there's silence, I worry about it. I never want to be one of those married couples who sit in silence, who sit in restaurants or on holiday, which luckily I'm not, but I know that that would be a mare. I've got to get rid of my discomfort with silence. Just have to practice, I have to do it in class more.
So I think what you say about the awkwardness of it is a really common feeling that we all start with for sure. One of the things that's helped me with that is thinking about it as cognitive calm for the students.
Right.
In that it's that opportunity, that sort of 10-15 seconds with just their own thoughts and no sort of noise. So
so you ask the question, and if they know there's going to be a pause, if they know there's not going to be a pause, then they're having to think while you're talking. They know there's going to be a pause, then they actually know I'm going to be able to think about this, which might make them less worried about cold calling.
But they also may not be able to think when you're talking.
Yeah.
And then, as soon as you say the name, they relax because they're off the hook. So even if then, so what happened a few times is you said the name, but then the person still needed a bit of thinking time there. Sometimes they had the answer straight away, but sometimes they still needed time to answer your question.
Yeah.
And that is time where possibly everybody else had thought, oh, I'm off the hook.
Right.
I don't have to think about this now. I think it's interesting. So I mean, I've got a video of a classroom, or if you come into me or Joe or Andy, you'll see it. You know, and I think it's a question of shifting a model in your brain of one where quiet and calm is a positive thing.
Because that's where, so a second thing that can happen, because I'm not yet good enough for this, there's a pause, they answer, but the others are still not used to the fact that they're going to be asked to comment on what the person has said. And so I will still go, sorry, I didn't listen. Which wasn't, I didn't hear it, it was I wasn't listening because I didn't know I had to, really.
Yeah.
Which is another area where I could blame the kid, but actually that's just classroom practice that's led that. So
have you tried? So have you tried sort of telling them you're going to?
Yeah, I think after half term I'm going to say I'm going to do something slightly different. Anyone that's taught by you will probably roll their eyes, but that's fine. But yeah, no, I think I'm going to need to because
So I mean, something we could think about scripting it, but something so it's.
No, I think
it might not be every time you do it, but certainly say, okay, so we're going to do some questions now. I want you all to be listening. So I may ask you to repeat what someone said. I may ask you to build on their answer and comment on it.
yes.
But it's really important that we are all listening to each other because that's how learning happens.
Yes.
And I think iterating that to them avoids this situation because I find this in my lessons a lot. When I haven't got into that practice, is I will get an answer from a student, I will simply ask another student to repeat it, and they are unable to do so. And if they're honest, they say I wasn't listening.
Yes.
And if they're not, and because I can usually tell the volume, they say, oh, I didn't hear. You know, so they won't be able to repeat. Or if they say don't know, I say, okay, well, what was the question? So
how
and
does
then
the setup of your science classrooms, which are rows, affect the ability for them to listen to it? I don't have that excuse, they're all in the round.
yeah.
How does someone on the top left and someone on the back right, how
I try to gauge it, so I am often encouraging my students to speak up. So if I feel that it's at a volume, so sometimes I just say, did you hear that back? That's all I'll say.
So that's my next question. I have a girl in the class, Ravenna, who sits back left, new girl, she speaks really quietly. I'm not going to ask her in front of all of them to speak louder. Do I just email her in a friendly manner and just say,
I would
"I'll
want
ask you
to
to-"
talk to her after class. I mean, I have it with one of my year 12s. There's some very, very soft-spoken, but I think it's a question of it's a way of interacting with a group as well. And I think it's a question of like what we all learn. We're all learning together, and so that shared. You know, everybody needs to be hearing what everybody says. I know it's difficult for you, but I think it's something that we need to try and
so
work on.
actually, I can address it. If I introduce to the class what I'm going to do, and therefore I'm going to need you to speak loudly, that'll probably do the job itself. And then see who's speaking loudly enough. Because I noticed that the other day. I couldn't hear it. I'm not sure others can. And then I'm trying to do other stuff around cold calling, which then isn't quite working. All right.
So in terms of getting that pause in, what do you think? So, I mean, we have practice, we could do more practice, and you practiced at home. Why do you think that's not coming into the classroom?
I look around during the pause and they're just, I need to tell them what to do during the pause.
Okay,
I'll tell you why it's not happening in the classroom. Because I have never introduced what I'm doing and told them what I'm doing and why I'm doing it.
Right.
And if I said, so I'm going to ask a question, then I'm going to pause, during which you've got time to think about the answer. Because they're all looking at me like, Sorry, my phone's
Right, so
so
they don't...
actually, it's
that's
just
really
a lack
good
of
observation.
instructions.
Right,
And it's not that you and Joe haven't said
yeah.
you should be giving instructions. I just haven't done it. But that's why
Yeah.
I wanted you to watch, because it makes me think about that.
I mean, I surveyed all my students last week and asked them what I should keep doing, what I should stop doing, what I should start doing in my teaching. And as a result of that, actually increasingly down in school, there was discussion about, there was sort of like, dislike of cold calling. So I actually showed them the first few slides of the Twilight, and I explained about what students remember, and I told them what ratio was.
Yes.
And I said, and then I did a model 3 types of question where I said the name first. I said the name immediately, and then I
You
paused.
pass me those slides?
Yes, I will
you
do.
email me those slides. So I've got a question for you on that. Luke Stubbs,
Yes, I teach him.
I'm in the car, taking him back from the play, and he talked about something that you did really well the other day. Was it Wednesday or Tuesday? Can you remember what it might have been? He was just particularly impressed with either the way you taught something or the way you did something. Year 12. I can't remember what you did in class, because I did ask him what it was.
I teach you 12 sets, and I'm not sure which he is.
Yeah, always a good thing to do, isn't it?
I'm not 100% sure.
Okay.
I mean, I don't remember doing anything special or different. What we were doing, can't remember which set he is now. I sort of have ideas about which set I do which stuff with. Sorry,
I don't know. No, I was
trying.
interested.
Yeah.
I'm not asking you.
Yeah.
Okay, so
So
you did a survey, they said cold calling, you then explained. I'd like to show that, because I think it'll sort of remind me as well. I do want to explain why we're doing it. So I was explaining to my family why we do it. Especially when you've got, a boy who at primary school was just ignored because he behaved well and didn't
Yeah.
learn anything.
Yeah.
Whereas
And possibly never put his hand up. And
so he needs to be learning and stuff. And it's gonna... so they understood ratio, I think, but it just,
And I think that, I also think that because the first thing you said was being comfortable with silence. And I think that feeds into the fact that you're looking around and you don't think the kids are really knowing what's going on. They're just thinking this is weird.
Yeah.
And maybe introducing it will help you.
Yes.
Well, that will help them, that will help you. I do think also there's a video on Step Lab on it, and I'll send you that, but also coming around and seeing it in action could also help you see how it becomes a normal part of a classroom. The way I do warm call, so I use the wait time actually to gauge how much thinking time is needed and how hard my question is. So students put their hands up when they have an answer. And so if they all go up straight away, that's fine. Okay, then I'll pick someone, maybe who has their hand up and maybe who doesn't. If after 15 seconds I only see, 20% of the hands, I'll think, oh, maybe that was a difficult question. And I might give them time to talk, or I might step back and say, right, I think that maybe was a bit challenging, let's go one step back. So people use it different. I call it warm call because it gives me an idea of the temperature of the room.
So Syra used the word warm call in her feedback, because what happened was a girl had got it and understood it. And so when I asked this question after about, and I did wait, because I said I was going to think about it, put your hand up and you read it, and she put her hand up first, so I used her. Which I did partly because she lacks confidence.
So it was nice that she put her hand up.
Sure enough, she did get it right, but also explained it very well. So warm call is different because it's...
Well, because so I don't know if that's what, I might not be using it properly, but I regard, cold call complete, I regard as no hands up, and you just, you still pick strategically, but you don't really know who has the idea and who doesn't. Whereas warm call, I get two things. I get an idea of how much thinking time is required, and I get an idea about who thinks they know and who doesn't. I'm often more interested in the kids who don't. And I tell them this.
Yes.
I say, look, the thing that, the reason I do cold call is because if you don't know the answer, that's because I haven't explained it well enough.
Yes.
And I need to know who you are and what's going on in your brain
Yes.
so that I can do a better job. So I try and bring it back to,
Yes.
it's not about you. And I mean, we're going to try and introduce as a school this idea of culture of error, where actually exposing your mistakes and your thought process is hugely valuable to us.
I'm laughing because I always remember what John Gilbert once said about INSEAD, that if something hasn't stuck the first time, it will come around again 10 years later. And
Oh, is that-
Andrew Matthews, learning is messy learning,
Yes.
culture of error.
Yeah.
I still think it's important, and
Yeah.
I happen to be in two subjects where they have to be prepared to make errors and get things wrong, so that is
Yes.
useful.
Yeah.
But culture of error is it's something we still need to worry about it, and we do, but partly because they.
But I think I think it's probably true in most schools, but in this school there is a hugely high stakes on achievement.
Well, and also they think they're being judged by other people. So the girl who had her hand up has said to me before she didn't put her hand up because she's worried about being judged by others when she gets the answer wrong. Which is why I made sure I called her when she put her hand up.
Yes.
I thought,
Yeah, and that's really good because
between you and me, I'm surprised you're the person that's getting this and the others aren't, but you've actually put your hand up, so I want to make sure. I think that's fine.
So I think the two things then we're thinking are, so I think you have practiced, so we're not clear that practice is the key to getting it right, but we think that introducing it
Yes.
so your students know,
Yes.
and I think, I'm not sure you're as convinced that maybe observing it in others.
No, I am.
You are,
No,
okay, so fine.
it's fine. Just got,
Yeah.
I have a ridiculous timetable.
Oh, I see, that's fine. I'll also got some videos. So I'll send you some
about 6 or
videos.
7 clubs, and I'm doing,
Right.
but that because we don't have another
Yeah.
people in the department doing them.
Yeah.
And so I'm just busy because of my free periods I have to use to prepare lessons because
Yeah.
I'm here later. I mean, I'm here at 7:15 anyway, so it's
But
just time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I know that I need to do it.
I mean, I'll also, I think I'll direct you to where on Step Plan there are cold calling videos, so that'll only take a couple of minutes to have a look at. But I think it's also helpful to see it in the school environment. I'll have a look when we're free, when you're free, when I'm teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it so much that
Yes.
almost any 5 minutes you come in, you will see it.
Well, you could be doing experiments though, so I need to
Yeah.
find the right 5 minutes.
I will, yes, I will check.
Yes.
I will let you know.
Yeah.
I do fewer experiments now than I used to.
Okay.
But, yeah.
I'm going to need to go. That was very useful, but I am
Yeah.
going to need to go and prepare for my
Yeah,
lesson.
yeah, me too.
But I think so. What I'm going to do, what I'm committing to, you can hold me accountable for, is I'm going to start beginning of next term with an explanation, proper explanation of how it's going to work, and cold calling, and reporting, and see how that goes. And then once I've done that explanation, you come and watch and then see.
Perfect. Okay. I will send you my slides, and
Yeah.
I will send you a proposed script.
Good. That's
and
what I would
then
like.
go from there.
So just ask me by the end of the first week, have I done the speech?
All right,
Have I done the
brilliant.
script? Because coaching doesn't work unless you hold the person accountable. Right?
Thank you, Paul. Have a good. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for coming last night as well. Sorry.
Oh, I mean, Ali's just like, what a star. What a star.
It was a great part.
It was a good part, but she played it really well.
The way to